I know I have a culture problem. I don't quite know how to fix it. We're short-staffed currently. There are members of my team who take advantage of the fact that we're short-staffed in their behavior, violate blatant policies of the firm.
How many lawyers?
2.
Yeah, 2 lawyers plus yourself. So because we're short staffed, they know we can't risk losing another person. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
And so they act out knowing that they're kind of immune from being held accountable in this environment.
Right. And I don't know how to handle that in the interim while we get staffed up.
Yeah. Joey, ever been shorthanded and have people feel their oats?
That is a really tough one. I had a similar situation in a different type of business where I had a manager in a business who was really kind of toxic and hard to manage. I guess I've learned a lot since then, but it's still a tough situation. I think you have to gird up your armor. Ultimately, there has to be accountability because it's going to continue to weigh on you and weigh on the culture of your small firm there and everybody that works there. It's going to keep you up at night, all of those things. For me, I would try to make alternate plans for what happens when this person is not here, and try to have a bit of a safety net. Also, know it's just you're gonna work more, and you're gonna have to fill in the gaps, and then have a plan for a conversation. You kind of state what you see the problem as and the effect, but very briefly, and then listen. Say, where am I off track here? What am I missing? And then if you seek to understand first, then there's the opportunity to have a dialogue about it. And ultimately the dialogue is, well, these things that I'm seeing it is damaging to the culture, to the vibe, to the,
right.
what we're doing. And it's hard for us all to move forward.
I think that's tremendous help, Joey. I'm going to put a little bit finer point on it. I think you need to you got to pick who's the worst culprit. And what you've got to understand is that if you don't do something, you said you have a culture problem. You don't have a culture problem. Nobody has a culture problem. You just might have culture that you don't want. And that's a problem. But how do you get the culture you do want? Well, by articulating it. And once it's communicated, by holding people accountable to it, including yourself. Because if you don't, then you're actually just enabling the culture you don't want, right? The breaking of policy, whatever that is. And then, to what Joey said, but this is where I wanted to put a finer point on it. I do this with myself regularly, because managing out of fear is bad for business. So I sit with myself, and sometimes with my partner, but usually with myself. And in my mind, Tom just quit. He just quit. Now I've got, am I going to hang it up? Is my business over? Or are we going to go forward? I can't get him back. He quit. He went work somewhere else. So what am I going to do? And I work the whole thing in real. Like, I make it very real for myself. And I also ask myself, all right, how do I feel? How do I feel right now? Sitting with that fact. Do I feel scared? Do I feel relieved? Do I feel excited? What are my emotions? And then I work the plan. Then I have the conversation, because now I'm not afraid. Because what we're afraid of the most beyond anything else is the unknown. It's in our amygdala. It's our lizard brain. We fear the unknown. We won't leave the fuselage, right? We fear the unknown. So make it known. Make it familiar. Understand what you would do, because you can't know that this person won't quit tomorrow. You don't know that. If they're acting out, chances are they've already felt the water anyway. They've got a toe out. So, and then you have the Joey conversation. If you're trying to cement culture, I would just twist the conversation a little bit. I think, everything he said is exactly right. But I would just say, hey, listen, I love the way you started. I have loved working with you here. I think you've been a real asset to the team. And I think one of the things that you probably came here for and really enjoy about this place is the culture that we're trying to build. And I've noticed over the past couple of weeks, months, whatever, that, policy 1, policy 2, you're not really you're kind of flagrantly going against that. And that's what it seems to me. What's going on with that? Why am I misperceiving something? And then, like Jerry said, ask questions. And then the ultimate question is, how do you think other people in the firm are going to be affected by this? And is that the culture that we want? This will put them on your side. Or they'll say, the truth is, I don't give a shit about your stupid policy about, I don't know what policy is being violated here, so I can't speak to it. But, one of mine, one that's violated here from time to time is, I don't care about your stupid policy about having to select my elective holidays by the end of January. I didn't know which ones I wanted, so I'm doing it in March. It's a dumb policy. And, then you have to take a beat and not get defensive and go like, that's interesting. That has been the policy. And it's so because we could have this innovative holiday schedule that seems to work really well for everybody. But are you telling me that January is too soon to require it? Tell me more about that. Again, bringing them onto my side. Eventually, I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to expect compliance with that decision. But, sometimes my policies are stupid. And then at the end, if I agree that the policy is stupid, I then get an agreement, a commitment. I say, Joey, I really appreciate the feedback, and we're going to make a little bit of a change here because your feedback was valuable. But can you and I agree from now on that if you've got a problem with one of our policies, you come to me, and now that I'll listen, but that until then, I need you to back me up because we're building something here. And it's flexible and will change, but it can't change with everybody running in whatever direction they want. Can I get that commitment from you? We're on the same team. And if you have to fire somebody, sometimes you have to fire somebody. But I know you're not afraid to do that.
Yeah.
You just might be afraid to do that right now.
No, not really. Just so effing tired of firing people.
One of the things I really liked what you said about being with yourself a minute. I'm glad you said it because I was going to say something similar. I just forgot. And that is, I've got a business coach. We meet every once in a while. And of course, you're always talking about the same problems. That's people, right? That's 80% of the issues you deal with in business or law firm or whatever. And oftentimes he runs through the exercise with me. He says, okay, but Joey, tell me. So you've got this person, this problem with this person. What are you going to feel like when it's resolved? You write it down. Like, how am I going to feel when it's resolved? Because most times you're putting off what you need to do because it's painful. But when your abiding feeling is pain, you sometimes get stuck. So you have to visualize your future self. What's it going to be like when I deal with this issue? Well, oftentimes the biggest feeling is relief. You mentioned that, Chris. Okay, well, I'm going to feel like I'm going to sleep better. I'm not going to worry as much about coworkers. We're going to have a better feeling all day long around here. I mean, whatever it is. Then if you can visualize that a moment, you go, okay, you know what? I'd rather be there than here, but I got to take the steps to do it. Then sometimes, at least for me, it gets me off dead center.
Your comment that you're tired of firing people. What's going on with your hiring and onboarding process that we're having to fire people? Who's doing your screening and interviewing?
Now, our firm administrator.
Is the person that you're going to have to let go tomorrow somebody who hired and onboarded that person? You don't have to say a name. It's either you or someone else.
Someone else. My former managing attorney.
Got it. So that was just a bad batch caused by a bad leader.
Yeah.
There's no turning it around.
No.
Bad hires cost a lot. I spend a lot on the hiring and onboarding process in terms of, mostly in terms of human resources and capital, because I understand how, I think most business leaders, most business owners don't really understand how ungodly expensive a bad hire is. So, the thought of spending 2 weeks of FTE's time for each onboarding, 80 hours for an onboarding is just unfathomable. You're like, well, that's a lot of time. I mean, if I'm adding 2 people a month, that means that I've got one person whose full-time dedicated job it is to be onboarding them. That's a huge investment, but it's like a teensy investment compared to the bad hire. And especially if that onboarding flushes people out. One of the things I'm proud of, and like I would set as a goal for you, is people either last less than 90 days or they're here forever. It's one or the other. And I don't consider the less than 90 days failures, because hiring is a dark art. And sometimes you get one in that just doesn't work out, but you get an onboarding process that flushes that out really fast, because that mitigates the expense of the bad hire. Then the bad hire is really only worth a couple months' salary as opposed to a year's worth, which is what a general bad hire usually is, or more. So who's in charge of hiring, of screening and hiring now?
I make final decisions on hiring, but my firm admin does the initial screening in the first interviews.
Even with lawyers?
Even with lawyers.
What are your do you have a playbook when you go in, when you're making that final decision? You have a playbook of things you're looking for that are consistent every time so that you can make predictions?
Yes, I am still fine tuning it, because I thought my last associate hire was good based on that, and we've added to it since then. I'm trying to learn from all of the bad hires.
I've got a set of 3 questions that I'll be glad to share with you. I'm not going to share them on the show. People who are listening, you want to know what they are? It's Christopher@sunnysidelaw.com. Send me an email. We'll talk. And you don't have to use my 3, but it tells me so much about who people are. And they're not tough. They're easy for people to answer, but it tells me a lot about who they are. And I ask them all the time, because that's, I've shifted them from time to time, but it's like, I like the consistency so that I can get feedback that tells me, yeah, you're on track. What you think is happening in these answers is or isn't. And that's that consistency across the board. And the other thing I do is I have everybody interview with a peer level person in the business. So if you've got to interview if you're an attorney, you interview with an attorney. If you're a paralegal, you interview with a paralegal. If you're an admin assistant, you interview with an admin assistant. And then I bring them in and I ask that person, and I don't tell them how to interview. It's just, I say, talk to this person for 20 minutes. And then I bring them in and I ask them 2 questions. On a scale of 1 to 5, how is this person a match for our business culture? And how is this person a fit for the role in skills? So culture fit, skills fit, 1 to 5. That's it. If a peer comes back with 5s, it's almost a solid hire for sure. And if a peer comes back with 2s or 1s or even 3s, it's almost certainly not a hire. And 4 is my gray area. They know better than I do a lot of the time.
Okay.
Because they're going to have to work with them.
Right.
Now, obviously, you don't put them with somebody that is on your short list of people who are going to need to go. But
or maybe you do and do the inverse.
Yeah. 2 birds, 1 stone. Thank you for that. Awesome. Is that helpful?
That was helpful.